Hey again. This is like part 7. Each little video is about 9 minutes long because I don't have any space on my phone. So every time I do a little video I have to delete it and then start again. So thank you for watching, and I am just trying to share a message of let the communication be between you and directly to God, and go by the peace of your spirit, because you can be misguided and misdirected by leaders of the church, and I'm going to share some other experiences which pretty much took me from a health situation into a triple health situation, and through what I would say you would call judgment without prayer. And so my heart was broken. So what happened was I ran away with my children. I'd gone to the temple and I'd explained the situation. I went to the temple and prayed about divorcing my husband, and the temple presidency said that God doesn't expect you to stay with an abusive man. And so I asked for a divorce, and things had already been bad before I asked for that, and there had been times that he managed to be decent, but he struggled. And when we ran away, it was a dire situation, where he turned into an absolute control freak, threatening so much, and threatened to kill me. And he had, it's unbelievable, isn't it? So he'd obviously got very messed up in his mind, and thought that he owned me. He told me that I was his possession. So anyway, me and my children, we was only going to go away for the weekend. He wasn't meant to be living with us at that time, but he would come on a Friday to see the children, and then he wouldn't leave, and he'd stay, and he'd, you know, do things that hadn't been offered or invited, etc., etc. And so I kind of finally couldn't keep it inside any longer, and I actually started telling people. It took me 19 years to actually say that I was in an abusive relationship, because I'd been sharing the gospel. I didn't want anyone to know that I was having a bad time. So anyway, when I mentioned this to a church member, she said for me to take my family up to where she was, and that the church would look after us there, and they did. So we went to up north, and we were looked after, and it was great. And unfortunately, we was looked after, and we was going to return, but we'd been told that he'd stayed in the property, so where we was going to go back after a couple of days, he was there, and so we was told for our own safety not to return, and obviously social services got involved in everything. But you would have thought that my life was just about to take a turn for a perfect, beautiful life, and I thought that getting away from abuse and getting away with my children and going to safety was going to be a joy. And little did I know how much the church would impact me. And by the church, I mean the actions of people that were quite prominent in the church, that didn't know me, and how they reacted, because when you suddenly become a single mum with 7 children, unfortunately, the church didn't treat me with the same respect as I was as a married woman and on the Relief Society presidency, and also, my best friends were the bishoprics, and I was one of the main people to share the gospel and bring the people into the church. So where I went to these other areas, they didn't know me or my history, and they just saw me as some scarlet woman, which they shouldn't have done. And unfortunately, I needed to heal. I'd already gone through a life of abuse, and just one thing after another, and I felt like I shouldn't have felt like this, but there was a crow of Jesus being at the temple, but it was at the place where they wanted to put him to death, and I literally felt like I was in that situation, that I was at places like the temple, and yeah, I felt like I was scorned, spurned, and just not welcome. And I'll tell you why and what happened. So the the ward that we went to was lovely, and they said, let's look after your children for you, and you go and stay at the temple for a week. And so my divorce was all I'd already applied for that, and it was already on the go, and had to get bailiffs involved in the end to get it signed. But anyway, I went to the temple and I stayed through a week, and on the last day, I wrote myself a little booklet, and on the front of it says "A New Life for Me," and I put the date on it, and I went and I wrote in it what I would like, and I wanted a good man, a nice husband. I wanted a new husband, a new life, and happiness. I walked around the temple grounds, pretty miserable, pretty heavy-hearted. It was my last day, and a worker there asked me how I was, and I didn't respond because I was a bit heavy-hearted, and they asked me 3 times, and on the third time I said, well, I'm feeling a bit crap really, and this person was lovely, and they said, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, let's say a prayer, I'll say a prayer for you. Anyway, what an absolute palaver, and my heart was broken um, from this person, because what it turned into, from one thing to another, um, basically, I told him some things of what had gone on, and he was a gardener, and he was he was a beautiful person, and he out of the blue asked me to marry him. I didn't, just met him. So I was meant to stay that night and go the next day, but I was so blown away and a bit, knocked off my feet, with a bit worried,